do know, I've lived long enough to know when we were a one-party state. And I've lived long enough to see where we are not classified as a two-party state.
Yes.
I'd like for you, as the governor elected by all of the people of Arkansas, what are some advantages to a two-party state?
Yeah.
What are some of the disadvantages? And how has term limit affected either one, a two-party state or a one-party state?
Okay, I think a two-party state, and I think term limits has enhanced the opportunity to have a two-party state. I think it's opened more seats and caused a turnover that tends to lend itself to the minority party having greater chance or greater opportunity. The advantages of a two-party state are you get issues debated, you get the opportunity for people to be able to choose between two different courses of action or two different approaches, and usually that kind of healthy debate with choices is healthy for any democracy. So those are some obvious good points. Bad point is if we start acting in an overly partisan manner once the election's over, it's counterproductive, terribly counterproductive. I don't want to make anybody here mad that's in Congress or running for it, but they're dysfunctional most of the time up there because of partisanship. And I'm not blaming Republicans and I'm not blaming Democrats. It's the system. If a Democrat comes up with a good idea, I mean, you almost gotta. It's a rarity before a Republican thinks they want to go along with it. And conversely, if a Republican comes up with a good idea, it's a rarity before a Democrat wants to go along with it. I mean, I never served up there, but I read a little bit about it. And I think the system is set up. I mean, the committee chairmanships, the committee assignments. Jim Guy's here, he served up there, he can tell you about all this. It's all dependent upon how you line up in your party and how loyal you are to that party. And so oftentimes you get sometimes you get a stalemate. And if you don't get a stalemate, you get the kind of angst and animosity and bad blood and non-cooperation and overly politicized rhetoric that I think most people don't like. I personally don't like it. And I don't think most Americans like that, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, but we don't seem to be able to shake it. Now, I want to brag on the legislature for a second. In my 20 years in the Senate, 4 years as AG, and now starting my 4th year as governor, we haven't had that in Arkansas. They line up on rural-urban, they line up on east-west, they line up on rich-poor, they line up, and they'll vary. I mean, it'll depending on what the issue is, you'll still see some rotation around it. But you might find half the Republicans joining 2/3 of the Democrats against 1/3 of the Democrats and the other half of the Republicans in the General Assembly. And so we haven't had that kind of partisan stalemate or partisan divide on the state level. And consequently, I think more people appreciate that job. Now, here's a warning. We saw a hint of it starting in the House of Representatives last time. We saw a hint of it starting. And I warned some folks about it. And I'm warning them again about it. We didn't see it in the Senate with either Republicans or Senate or Democrats. And most of the House did not do that. There were a few House members that thought it was Washington or wanted to act like it was Washington. But what's the downside of a two-party system? You can get too much of that partisan ideology that overrides the ability for people to be able to work together for a common ground and for common interest. I think that's why you're seeing a greater and greater percentage of folks when they're polled that identify themselves as independents. I know my chairman didn't want to hear me say that, but I think I still think you've got more Democrats than Republicans, but I think you've got a bigger swatch in the middle that consider themselves.
What do you think's caused a lot of the political turmoil? Pick on the federal offices here.
I think a whole lot of it is what I said, that there's a lot of overly divided sides based purely on partisanship. Now, having said that,
I also think that American people are really unsure and afraid of the health care reform. I mean, our own state, I think, was polled as having very strong worries and concerns over the health care bill. I expressed concerns over the cost to the state about the health care bill. But what I'd like to see happen, and I would submit to you that not more than 20 or 25 years ago, it might have been possible for Republicans and Democrats to sit down and say, look, we agree on A, B, and C. We disagree on E, F, and G. Let's see what we can agree on and go get that knocked out of the way. And then let's fight like the Dickens, honestly and openly and professionally about the things that we don't agree on. And that doesn't seem to be happening. And I'm not blaming one party. It doesn't happen on either side of the aisle. I guess I'm an equal opportunity, tell everybody to get together kind of guy.